Four suspects appeared in a Nashville courtroom this morning. Each one faces charges in a mass shooting from the weekend of TSU's homecoming. Police say two groups in rival gangs got in an argument on Jefferson Street. There were around 100 bystanders nearby, some of them hit by bullets, including children.
It was more than the misuse of governmental records that started an investigation into a former Metro detective. Newly obtained documents say he was also in a gang. News Channel 5's Matthew Torres explains why some are actually coming to his defense. Matthew.
Well, he made the Kurdish community proud back in 2012 when he became the first Kurdish police officer in Nashville. But now he's been indicted on 57 counts of misconduct. On top of that, new police documents say he wasn't just a detective, he was a gang member too. This is the face of a once highly recognized Metro detective, but those who know Jiai Suleiman see him in a different light.
We're here for him. Tonight we have some new information about some of the people arrested in a series of local ICE crackdowns that started back in May. 196 undocumented immigrants were rounded up.
Leonel Vargas Jr. is in custody after being on the run since last year on felony domestic violence and other charges.
Second superseding indictment was handed down by a federal grand jury in Nashville. The indictment came down Monday, charging 9 members of MS-13.
Official violent South American gang found living in the suburbs of Middle Tennessee. Police arresting 2 people that they say ran a sex slavery operation.
Nashville, Tennessee is often celebrated as the heart of country music, a city known for its vibrant nightlife, booming tourism, and the legendary stretch of Broadway. But beyond the neon lights and historic recording studios lies a much darker reality. For decades, Nashville's working-class neighborhoods, particularly its public housing developments, have wrestled with cycles of poverty, drugs, and violent crime. As the city grew into a cultural powerhouse, it also became a battleground for street gangs, some homegrown and others with international reach. From the Athens Park Bloods to the Kurdish Pride Gang, and even MS-13, law enforcement has repeatedly clashed with criminal networks that operate in the shadows of Music City. The indictments and arrests over the past decade reveal just how deeply entrenched gang activity has become and how authorities are fighting to dismantle these organizations piece by piece.
Marius Tracy, Metro Police say they've now arrested 31-year-old Corey Johnson and 23-year-old Keon Hayeswoods. Officers say the two are facing charges of shooting into a crowd of people on October 12th. Police say Johnson and Hayeswood were part of 2 gang-affiliated groups shooting at each other on the opposite side of Jefferson Street with a large crowd in the middle of them. Those bullets hit 10 people and killed 24-year-old Von Quay Johnson. Police say Johnson was a part of the 2 groups shooting. This afternoon, officers found and arrested Hayeswood and Johnson. They're facing felony charges of reckless endangerment with a deadly weapon and assault. Now, police say the shooters were a total of 5 people.
4 suspects appeared in a Nashville courtroom this morning. Each one faces charges in a mass shooting from the weekend of TSU's homecoming. Police say 2 groups in rival gangs got in an argument on Jefferson Street. There were around 100 bystanders nearby, some of them hit by bullets, including children. 1 suspect died from his injuries. It leaves 4 men to face charges, but detectives are still trying to find out what prompted them to start shooting. They say the men bumped into each other seemingly by accident, and the shots rang out just a few moments later.
After the bump, Johnson kind of is backing away and Davis turns towards him, and I believe I counted 6 seconds later that Davis drew his gun from his waistband after the shoulder bump.
One thing that's made this investigation more difficult, police never recovered the guns they used that day.
On October 12, 2024, a mass shooting broke out along Jefferson Street in Nashville, Tennessee, leaving 3 people dead and 4 others wounded in a crowded area during Tennessee State University's homecoming events. Around 100 people were gathered at the intersection of Jefferson Street and 27th Avenue North when the violence began. Witnesses reported that the conflict started after 2 of the suspects appeared to bump into each other, which quickly escalated when Marquez Davis allegedly pulled out a gun and opened fire. Chaos erupted as shots rang out, with bystanders, including children, scrambling for safety. Some community members rushed to help the wounded before emergency responders arrived, and investigators later marked over 30 pieces of ballistic evidence at the scene. Among the victims was 24-year-old Vonquy Johnson, who died after being transported to Vanderbilt University Medical Center. 9 others were wounded, including innocent bystanders, with some as young as 12 years old. Although most of the injuries were not life-threatening, the scale of violence rattled the community and underscored ongoing concerns about gang tensions in Nashville. Police identified 5 individuals with gang ties connected to the shooting. Vonquy Johnson, the man who met his demise during the gunfire, was himself named as one of the armed participants. His brother, Corey D. Johnson, and Keon Hayes Woods were arrested weeks later on November 6, 2024. Corey Johnson was charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and reckless endangerment, while Hayes Woods faced reckless endangerment and unlawful gun possession as a convicted felon. Earlier, authorities had taken 2 other suspects into custody, 24-year-olds Marquez Davis and DeAnthony Brown, both of whom were charged with criminal homicide in Johnson's death. Davis also faced a separate federal charge as a felon in possession of a firearm. On November 21, 2024, all 4 surviving suspects appeared in court, where Judge Walker ruled that there was sufficient evidence for the case to proceed to a grand jury. Bonds were set at $80,000 for Corey Johnson and $94,000 for Hayes Woods, while Davis and Brown remained in custody under more serious charges. Investigators noted that not all of the firearms used in the incident had been recovered. The Jefferson Street shooting, tied directly to ongoing gang rivalries, left the Nashville community shaken, with many calling for stronger strategies to curb gang violence in historically significant but troubled areas of the city.
We're here for him. We support him 100%.
The 29-year-old is accused of using a state database system to look up members of the Kurdish Pride gang on his days off and after hours. Newly obtained police documents say he was part of that gang while on the force and never brought it up when he applied.
It's absurd. I mean, he's a police officer. He wore the badge. There was no gang activity.
Police say he would visit House of Kebab, where there were illegal sales of drugs and guns involving KPG members, people Solomon apparently kept in touch with. Phone records showed constant communication with other members. A search at a well-known member's house had pictures of Solomon, quote, participating in gang activities, like wearing KPG-affiliated clothes and throwing signs.
I feel it's as if it's a reach, to be quite honest with you, and we don't feel like there's anything really there.
Like many members of the Kurdish community, Hamad Kazi questions the legitimacy of the case. He is friends with Solomon and says they stand by him.
We're Kurds. We stick together, and we're going to support him. And it just makes us stronger.
Letters from Chief Steve Anderson to Solomon over the years praised him for his outstanding work. Just a few months after he was credited for stopping a heroin ring in December, he resigned in the middle of his investigation.
In 2018, the Metro Nashville Police Department faced a scandal when one of its own officers, G.I. Ahmet Suleiman, was indicted on 57 counts of official misconduct. Suleiman, then 29 years old and celebrated as the city's first Kurdish American police officer, was arrested on May 8 following a Tennessee Bureau of Investigation probe into allegations of corruption and improper use of state systems. A Davidson County grand jury alleged that Suleiman repeatedly accessed the state's criminal justice portal to run unauthorized queries on members of the Kurdish Pride gang, despite having no active cases involving them. The internal investigation into Suleiman had already raised serious concerns. He resigned from the department on March 30th, just weeks before his indictment, after MNPD found he had violated multiple policies regarding departmental security, associations with criminals, and truthfulness. Reports also tied him directly to KPG activity, alleging that he frequented a restaurant connected to the gang's narcotics trade, made gang hand signs and photographs, and even held personal ties to active members. The TBI went as far as to label him a member of the Kurdish Pride gang himself. When Suleiman appeared in court, his attorney entered a not guilty plea on all charges. His arrest divided Nashville's Kurdish community. Some believed he had been unfairly targeted because of his close ties to the city's Kurdish population, while others saw the case as a betrayal, especially given that Suleiman had previously been commended for his anti-gang enforcement work while serving as an officer.
Tonight, we have some new information about some of the people arrested in a series of local ICE crackdowns that started back in May. 196 undocumented immigrants were rounded up. Now, we know that the only crime 70 of these people are accused of is being in this country illegally.
ICE confirms making 196 arrests of undocumented immigrants during an early May crackdown. The agency confirms 70 people arrested had civil immigration violations, not criminal charges.
We're concerned about the National Guard being sent out to cities.
Is a very effective use of taxpayer dollars.
Continuing coverage of the ongoing ICE crackdown, the Tennessee National Guard is helping ICE officers in Nashville as well as across the state.
In May 2025, the Department of Homeland Security announced the results of a major ICE operation in Nashville that led to the arrest of 196 undocumented immigrants, many with serious criminal backgrounds. The multi-agency effort, carried out in partnership with the Tennessee Highway Patrol, specifically targeted individuals with violent histories and prior deportations. According to officials, 95 of those taken into custody had prior felony convictions or pending criminal charges, while 31 had previously been removed from the United States but re-entered illegally. DHS highlighted several cases to illustrate the severity of the arrests. Among those detained was 60-year-old Jassim Jafath al-Rash, an Iraqi national with convictions for rape, larceny, and false imprisonment, who also failed to register as a sex offender. Another, Inmar Antonio Panado Membreno of El Salvador, had a drug trafficking conviction. Federal authorities also apprehended Franklin Oswaldo Velasquez, a Salvadoran linked to the MS-13 gang, who was the subject of an international red notice for aggravated deletion in his home country. Additional arrestees included Richard St. Baptiste, a Haitian man with distribution convictions, and from Guatemala, who had been convicted of aggravated assault. The crackdown underscored the ongoing national debate over immigration enforcement, with federal authorities framing it as a necessary public safety measure, while city leaders warned of the harm such actions inflict on immigrant communities.
They say Leonel Vargas Jr. is in custody after being on the run since last year on felony domestic violence and other charges. The MNPD SWAT team gets credit for this arrest here. Federal alcohol and tobacco and firearms agents had been the ones investigating Vargas's association with the MS-13 gang.
On April 24, 2025, Metro Nashville police announced the arrest of Leonel Vargas Jr., a suspected MS-13 gang member who had been on the run since 2024. Vargas was wanted on multiple outstanding warrants, including a felony domestic aggravated assault charge. Authorities said the Metro SWAT team carried out the arrest in coordination with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, which had been investigating Vargas's ties to MS-13. The operation ended with Vargas taken into custody without incident, and he is now being held without bond while awaiting trial. Police released limited details about the arrest, but confirmed it was part of an ongoing effort to curb MS-13 activity in the Nashville area. Investigators also urged the public to come forward with any information about gang activity to aid their broader crackdown on violent groups. In April 2018, federal prosecutors announced the sentencing of Deunta Finch, a 28-year-old ranking member of the Athens Park Bloods street gang in Nashville. Finch received a 24-year federal prison term for firearms and robbery offenses, capping a violent criminal career that authorities said repeatedly endangered the community. Finch pleaded guilty in January 2017 to being a felon in possession of a firearm and ammunition, attempting a robbery that affected interstate commerce, and discharging a firearm during that attempted robbery. His criminal record already included multiple felony convictions, among them robbery, reckless endangerment with a weapon, and repeated firearm possession charges. Court documents detailed a string of violent incidents in the summer and fall of 2015. On June 21st, Finch brandished a weapon and stole a firearm from a juvenile inside the J.C. Napier public housing development. Just 2 days later, he was involved in a shootout while riding in a car with another juvenile, leaving him injured but able to flee the scene. Later that year, on November 5th, Finch robbed a drug dealer at the Lexington Garden Apartments in Madison. When the victim resisted, Finch shot and seriously wounded him before fleeing with a quantity of cocaine. Authorities arrested Finch a week later during a Metro Police SWAT operation. A 9 pistol recovered from his car was linked by ballistics to the Madison shooting. Initially, Finch agreed to a 15-year plea deal with federal prosecutors, but just weeks after entering the agreement, he brutally assaulted another inmate at the Grayson County Detention Facility in Kentucky, breaking the prisoner's jaw and ribs. Prosecutors withdrew the deal, arguing the assault showed Finch's continued danger to society. At his sentencing, U.S. District Judge Marvin Aspen emphasized Finch's extensive history of violence and repeated failures to reform, stating that protecting the public was the most important factor in imposing the harsher sentence. Finch's case highlighted the persistent role of gang violence in Nashville's public housing communities and was cited by federal officials as a clear example of why aggressive prosecutions of armed gang members remain a priority. In the summer of 2015, Nashville's J.C. Napier and surrounding public housing developments were shaken by a wave of gun violence. On July 16th, gunfire erupted at the University Court Apartments, where a young mother, India Jones, stood on her porch holding her 7-month-old son. 2 men, identified as Martez Parham and Ernest Eddy, were also with her. Police say Terrence Terry Kimbrough and Daryl Starks opened fire from a vehicle, striking Jones in the head and leaving her critically injured. When she collapsed, her infant son suffered a scratch to the head. Eddy sustained a graze wound, while Parham escaped without injury. Investigators later determined that Parham and Eddy were the intended targets. The violence did not end there. Just 1 day later, on July 17th, Kimbrough and Starks allegedly returned to the Napier neighborhood and opened fire again. This time, 2 women, 37-year-old Pamela L. Cassie and 33-year-old India Jones, were wounded in the 800 block of Claiborne Street, while another woman suffered life-threatening injuries. The brazen attack intensified fears in the community. On July 28th, authorities tracked the 2 suspects to an apartment on Blank Street, where both men were arrested without incident. They were charged with multiple counts of aggravated assault, attempted homicide, attempted deletion, and reckless endangerment for their role in the July shootings. The investigation also tied Kimbrough to an earlier murder case. He was indicted for first-degree in the December 3, 2014, demise of Monty Watson, who was found shot multiple times on Lewis Street. Prosecutors argued that the July shootings were part of a broader pattern of violence in the Napier Place and Studecum public housing communities, where Kimbrough and Starks had resorted to gunfire to wreak havoc in recent months.
The 9 members of the transnational criminal organization MS-13 face charges dealing with racketeering conspiracy, which includes things like drug distribution and the allegation of 7 in Nashville between 2016 and 2017. Officials worked to get these 9 members of MS-13 off Nashville streets. These are the members that have been indicted. This isn't the first major indictment dealing with the MS-13 gang. Back in 2017, 13 members of the gang were charged and convicted with racketeering offenses.
Get your hands up there!
That's Kevin Tidwell after running from Williamson County deputies, Brentwood police, and U.S. Marshals in a high-speed pursuit.
Roll out towards me!
Tidwell is one of the 9 members of the MS-13 gang named in the federal indictment. accused in the 2017 Jesus Flores in Antioch and the deadly shooting of Amarillo Garcia Munoz in a Murfreesboro Pike Strip Mall parking lot, both within a 6-day period. Additional include that of 19-year-old Jorge Alvarado, found shot to death in a field in South Nashville. 18-year-old Liliana Rodriguez, I-24, the shooting death of a man whose body was found in the trunk of a burned car in Cheatham County, and the death of Yerry Gabina and Hector Gabata at a South Nashville apartment complex. Investigators believe at the hands of Oster Delgado Flores. Investigators saying Nashville's streets are safer tonight, but that this is just a step at booting the gang from our community.
9 members of the MS-13 gang have been indicted for multiple violent crimes, including 7 deletions, kidnappings, assaults, robberies, and large-scale drug distribution. Attorney for the Middle District of Tennessee, Mary Jane Stewart, stated, MS-13 is one of the most violent, ruthless, and cold-blooded gangs to ever walk the face of the earth. Authorities reported that an MS-13 subunit, specifically the Thompson Place Los Salvatrucha clique, had been operating in Nashville since at least 2014. One of the earliest crimes linked to the gang occurred on April 6, 2016, when MS-13 members, including Jose Pineda Casas, lured Jorge Alejandro Potter Alvarado to a secluded field in Davidson County under the pretense of smoking marijuana. Believing he was a rival gang member, they confronted him before shooting him multiple times and leaving him to die.
Good evening. Liliana Rodriguez, or Lily for short, just graduated from Hunters Lane High School this past May and was enjoying the summer with her brother and friends when the unthinkable happened.
Liliana, her older brother Rodrigo, and their friends enjoyed a night out at La Mansión Club on Antioch Pike.
That day, she's so happy.
She never made it back home.
I did notice a car trailing behind.
Rodrigo was driving as the 4 of them left the club.
Car pulled up next to us and, I heard a bang.
Thinking it was nothing more than an engine backfire, the group kept going. But Rodrigo said he noticed the vehicle trailing them was beginning to act aggressively.
Once we were getting close to the split between downtown and our exit, I heard probably like 4 or 5 more.
That's when he realized they were being shot at.
Lily's friend.
On July 31st, 2016, 18-year-old Liliana Rodriguez met her demise in a drive-by shooting on Interstate 24 West. That night, Pineda Caceres and other MS-13 members attended a South Nashville nightclub, where they suspected another individual of being a rival gang member. After leaving the club, they chased the suspect's vehicle on the highway and fired multiple shots, deleting Rodriguez, who was an unintended victim. Pineda Caceres later fled the U.S., but was arrested upon his return in November 2017. On January 18, 2017, Jorge Flores and another MS-13 member attempted to delete a man identified as RV and 3 others in Nashville. They chased RV's vehicle from a Walmart parking lot, cornered it, and opened fire, hitting RV multiple times. A month later, MS-13 members planned to delete 2 rival drug dealers, victims 6 and 7, along with an MS-13 associate who had connections with them. On February 18, 2017, the gang pursued their victims for miles, shooting at them and into a crowded South Nashville nightclub. The following week, they shot one of the victims in the neck and torso, causing life-threatening injuries. But police intervened and provided medical aid.
New this morning, the search is on for several gunmen after a man was shot in his car. This all happened at a strip mall in South Nashville off Murfreesboro Pike this morning.
All of this unfolding around 12:30 Sunday morning. Multiple people called 911 on reports of hearing that gunfire. Officers responded to a parking lot at a strip mall on Thompson Place at Murfreesboro Pike. They found a man in his car who had been shot multiple times. This is near the Sheba Restaurant and Memories Hookah Lounge.
On May 21, 2017, Amerly Josue Garcia Munoz was gunned down in a strip mall parking lot after MS-13 members mistook him for a rival gang member. Similarly, on May 27, 2017, Jesus Alberto Flores was deleted in a drive-by shooting in Antioch. MS-13 member Kevin Tidwell had earlier argued with victim 11 at a convenience store. Later, Tidwell and another gang member followed him in a truck, firing shots with an AK-47 and a 9mm pistol, ultimately deleting him. To cover their tracks, they burned the truck in an abandoned field. The indictment also includes multiple instances of kidnapping and brutal assaults. On June 17, 2017, MS-13 members confronted a man at a nightclub who had falsely claimed gang affiliation. They summoned additional members, leading to a violent altercation. One of them retrieved an AK-47 and fired a warning shot before forcing the victim into a car and taking him to a secluded location, where they beat him. On July 25, 2017, MS-13 member Gerson Serrano Ramirez kidnapped and tortured a man whom he accused of cooperating with law enforcement. Serrano Ramirez choked him with a rifle strap, sprayed bleach in his eyes, suffocated him with a plastic bag, and broke his finger with pliers. On September 24, 2017, Luis Miguel Colindres Varela deleted Jose Pagada at a South Nashville nightclub, suspecting him of being a rival gang member. To ensure there were no witnesses, Colindres Varela also deleted Yeri Hernandez Gabino, one of Pagada's companions. That same day, MS-13 members lured another victim to a meeting in Nashville, deleted him, and burned his body in the trunk of a car to eliminate evidence. These indictments mark a major step in dismantling MS-13's operations in Nashville.
Now to Operation Crime and Justice. Members of a violent South American gang found living in the suburbs of Middle Tennessee. Police arresting two people that they say ran a sex slavery operation for Tren de Aragua. Fox 17 News' Karen Aguilar joining us here in studio tonight to break down these new arrests. Karen?
Megan, investigators say the two arrested linked to Tren de Aragua coerced the victims to come to the United States under false pretenses and instead were enslaved in the Nashville area.
Young, vulnerable, poor women forced into prostitution in the Nashville area after investigators say they were lured into the country with lies, promising them a better life, manipulating them to pay more than their travel costs using their bodies. Venezuelans Yilibet del Carmen Rivero de Caldera and her son, Cleaver Daniel Mota Rivero, are now under arrest, accused of trapping these women in a life of misery. Investigators say they use their Tren de Aragua ties to scare the women into commercial sex and exploitation. They and 6 others are facing human trafficking charges for an operation beginning in 2022.
On that crime tracker alert, 8 Venezuelan nationals facing federal indictments accused of sex trafficking young women right here in Middle Tennessee. Now, the U.S. Attorney's Office in Nashville says members of the ring took the victims to hotels across Nashville and created online advertisements for the women to engage in. Investigators say the group targeted poor and vulnerable women from Venezuela and other South and Central American countries with the promise they'd have a better life here. Now, Metro Police Chief John Drake describes what happened after these women were moved to Tennessee.
Once here, we believe those women were forced into commercial sex trade to settle their outrageously high travel debts.
In February 2025, federal authorities in Tennessee unsealed a 4-count indictment charging 8 Venezuelan nationals with operating a transnational commercial sex enterprise linked to the notorious Tren de Aragua (TD) gang. This case sheds light on the gang's expanding criminal footprint in the United States and highlights the collaborative efforts of law enforcement to dismantle human trafficking networks. According to the indictment, the defendants lured young women from Venezuela and other South and Central American countries to the United States under false promises of legitimate work opportunities. Upon arrival, these women were coerced into commercial sex work to repay exorbitant debts imposed by traffickers. The victims were often threatened with violence, and some had their children and immigration documents confiscated to ensure compliance. The indictment named the following individuals as key figures in the operation: Yilibet del Carmen Rivero de Caldera, 51, alleged leader of the operation alongside her son; Cleaver Daniel Mota Rivero, 35, believed to have direct ties to TDA and responsible for intimidation tactics; Yurabetsi del Valle Gomez Machuca, 39, charged with overseeing operations within Nashville motels. Wilmaris del Valle Manzano Solorzano, 22. Frankiana del Valle Romero Rivero, 30. Endrick Alexander Morales Rivero, 25. Jesus Enrique Castillo Rodriguez, 24. And Arianis Beatriz Gutierrez Carrillo, 24. All allegedly played roles in advertising, logistics, and victim control. The operation, which spanned from July 2022 through March 2024, used Nashville motels as a base for commercial sex activities. The traffickers placed advertisements on websites and coordinated transactions using internet and cellular communications. Victims were moved between different states to avoid detection, making this a complex interstate crime. Tren de Aragua, originally a Venezuelan prison gang, has rapidly expanded its operations across Latin America and the United States. The group is notorious for its involvement in human trafficking, drug smuggling, and violent crimes. In July 2024, the U.S. Department of the Treasury designated TDA as a transnational criminal organization due to its growing influence and operational scope.
The stories of Nashville's gang indictments are more than isolated headlines. Together, they paint a stark picture of a city where music and violence often coexist side by side. From mass shootings on Jefferson Street to the infiltration of law enforcement by gang-affiliated officers, the threats have been both public and deeply personal to the community. Federal crackdowns, long prison sentences, and high-profile arrests show that authorities are determined to bring order. Yet the persistence of gangs like MS-13, the Athens Park Bloods, and the Kurdish Pride gang proves this fight is far from over. Nashville stands at a crossroads, striving to preserve its reputation as a hub of culture and opportunity, while confronting the ongoing battle against gang violence that threatens to erode its progress. The question that remains is whether the city can strike the balance between growth and safety, ensuring that the future of Music City isn't defined by its darkest chapters,